Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy, you can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsey Cortes, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Hello, fans and listeners. It's Lindsey Cortes, your host of the podcast and registered dietitian. I'm here today with part 2 of my story about my personal experiences with fueling and nutrition as a female athlete and as a sports dietitian. If you haven't listened to part 1, please go back. We released it just last week. And part 1 was really that insight into, how I became a dietitian, my background as a young athlete into a collegiate athlete, and then post-college, and also where I actually struggled with eating and would honestly resonate with the term disordered eating, though I didn't identify it as that at the time. I truly thought I was doing everything right, but I struggled with body image. I struggled with believing in myself and my body and its athletic potential. I struggled with, criticizing my weight and calorie counting. And there are a whole bunch of things that I tried to, quote, fix myself that did not work. And so in episode 1, I kind of share about that and then eventually kind of how I learned to break free of that, which leads us to part 2, which is, life as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete, and why that became sort of my motto as I began specializing in working with female athletes as well in my profession. So much of it came not only from my studies and my job, but from my personal experiences of what it really takes to become fierce in my mindset, fit in my body, and fueled for sport. That became my motto because of what I went through personally. So go back and listen to part 1 if you haven't already, and this is part 2. Now, before we dive into it, I want to share with you that the new website is launched. It's not perfect yet, but done is better than perfect. I think there's still some tweaks I want to make to the website, things we are going to add in time, but ultimately, if you are looking for resources, if you want to search for past episodes, if you want to get help, if you want to donate to the podcast, if you want to reach out and contact me, if you want to become a guest speaker on the podcast, you can head to the brand new website, femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com. It doesn't get any simpler than that. femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com. Please go check it out on desktop, on mobile, explore that page, send it to a friend, really hoping that that website becomes a great resource and kind of an expansion of this podcast. And remember, this podcast itself is available on multiple different listening platforms. We actually just added YouTube, and we are hoping to add video recordings in the future as well. We're working on that right now. If you're interested in listening to podcasts through video, you'll be able to do that through YouTube podcasts, and Spotify has the video option as well. Lots of different listening platforms, and the website for resources now, femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com. So part 2 of my story, I just want to recap part 1 again, that ultimately what helped me, as I went in and out of different phases of disordered eating throughout this 10 to 15 year span that started somewhat in high school. The 3 things that really helped me heal my relationship with food, which therefore healed my relationship with my body, which therefore healed my actual nutrition, improved my actual nutrition markers of health, blood biomarkers, and then translated into improved performance. I kind of went back and I listened to part 1, and I wanted to quickly summarize the 3 things that really did the trick. The first one is that I stopped caring about my weight. If you listen to part one, I was for so many years just concerned about my weight, the number on the scale, dissatisfied with my body, especially when I was in college and my body gained weight and my body changed. Some was muscle, some was fat, especially as I had injuries and I gained some weight and I wasn't able to exercise the way I wanted to. I was caring too much about my weight and therefore I was manipulating my diet and I was in a negative mindset. I was focusing on the wrong thing. So what really helped me and what I still do to this day is I don't care about my weight. Things that help me do that, things that are in place is I actually do own a scale, but it's tucked away in my closet. So I would have to intentionally take it out and I don't do that. And for some people, I would recommend don't have a scale in your house at all and ask your doctors not to be weighed. Like that's one way to just stop caring is by not having that number in your face all the time. And then really learning and disassociating weight from performance or weight from self-worth or weight from beauty, whatever it is that you are linking there that's holding you back, really disassociating it. Because I found in my journey that when I stopped trying to lose weight, that's when I actually started winning. That's when I started performing better. That's when I started feeling better. That's when I started to be truly nourished. That's when I felt confident and comfortable in my body. Yes, there was a period where I didn't, but eventually in the long run, pun intended there, it all worked out. So if you stop trying to lose, you might actually win. So stop caring about your weight. Stop trying to lose weight. Number 2 that really helped is truly listening to my body as far as what it was wanting nutritionally. And this is certainly a process to learn that, to learn your hunger fullness cues, to learn what tastes you like, food preferences. But again, in part 1, I really focused on the fact that I counted calories a lot. I think I forgot to mention that I also went through the ringer with diets. So like I really need more than part 1 and part 2 if you really want to hear my whole life story. But we'll save that for my close friends and family. But I also did go through the ringer of I was gluten-free for many years. I certainly grew up low fat and I did that for a long time, only non-fat Greek yogurt, only skim milk, just low fat chicken breasts, only, ground turkey meat instead of ground beef. I was on the low fat kick for a while. Calorie counting, which I already mentioned, super low carb, essentially ketogenic, before it was truly called ketogenic, and I never actually measured my ketones, but I did for a period of time a super, super low carb diet for aesthetic reasons. And so I've been through the diet ringer, but tip number 2, as far as what really helped me heal from disordered eating, is to stop doing any sort of dieting. No calorie counting, no macro counting, no low fat, no gluten-free, no calorie, no ketogenic, whatever. No dieting, eating what my body wanted and how much my body wanted. And for the most part, that's a learning lesson too. Sometimes my body's I want a whole gallon of ice cream. Ooh, that didn't feel good. Okay, so it's not always an instant win, but eventually it's okay, a cup of ice cream feels good. Great, let's do that. Oh, I'm really craving a salad. Crap, I just crashed on my run. Okay, I'm going to have a salad with non-bread next time. And learning the combination of what your body wants and what it needs. And so, but doing that as opposed to somebody else's predetermined set of rules regarding eat this, not that, or follow X diet. It was my own path. So that's tip number 2. Listen to my body, find my own way of eating, not following any quote unquote diet in what our, society deems a diet to be. And the third thing, a little nuanced here, but that really helped me heal, was to truly find the balance of having fun with food and sport while still being disciplined and competitive. It is in my nature as an athlete, and, I can generalize that type A personality, whatever, to be competitive, to be disciplined. And that's great. And it gets me pretty far. But also when I find flexibility, when I find freedom, when I have more fun, I actually do succeed much better. And I think that's a lesson a lot of athletes learn is if you're having fun with sport, you're probably going to do better at it. You're going to be in a better mindset. You're going to be, recover from setbacks better. You're going to be a little more you're actually going to be more competitive because you're going to have more confidence if you're having more fun. Well, those same tactics can be applied to our nutrition too, of like, have fun with food, like challenge yourself to new recipes, go out to eat, explore different flavors, and having fun with food, maybe eating socially with friends, having fun with food in combination with a certain level of discipline of, okay, I want to make sure I'm getting my iron in, need those carbs for a workout, got to hit my protein. Like, as you're having fun with food and you combine it with that level of discipline, that's really the balance that you need. And so that's my third tip, is to really have fun with food. So those are the three things that really helped me heal from kind of that part one of my journey. And now I want to get you kind of up to speed on the last like 7 or so years of my life. And I would say timeline wise, like definitely, gosh, well, that was obviously before the pandemic, if you're doing quick math in your head. But during that time is when I really actually started focusing on this, my own business, formerly Rise of Nutrition, LLC, starting my own business. And with that took a lot of time and effort. So I was at a stage in my life where I was working full time, even in my past jobs, and then switching over to my own job. I was actually kind of sitting in front of the computer from like 9 to 5 or like 9 to 4 most days and really working a lot, but I was also training. So it was that combination of like, okay, I got up in the morning and I did, 6 miles, but then I kind of sat a lot the rest of the day. Or, I lifted in the afternoon, but I was sitting a lot too. So it was that combination of what a lot of like adult recreational athletes experience of, I am training, I am trying to PR, I am trying to set a new record, I am trying to really get into this new sport, but at the same time, I kind of have that like more average lifestyle or can be sedentary. And I'm an active person, but like, when you're working 8 hours sitting in a chair, you just are. So that was like, everything I learned was so important of sports nutrition fundamentals, of making sure that I'm fueling up pre and post workout properly and hydrating properly, while also just making balanced meals for those days that I wasn't training or that I was sitting extra at work. Throughout this time, I did sign up for another marathon. I did a marathon during that time, and I started trail running a lot more when I moved to Texas. And between distance trail running and marathoning, and also, did I mention it was Texas? Heat of Texas. Carbohydrates became way more important in my life than ever before. Because as I mentioned, my younger years, I was a gymnast and a sprint power athlete. So I transitioned over the course of that decade into more endurance, and then endurance in the heat, hydration, electrolytes, carbohydrates. Like the answer was always more, more, more. I am not currently marathon training, but some things that I remember when I was is not only the importance of during training fuel, definitely having something every 45 minutes or sooner if needed. I really prefer the gels. I just find them to be the most tolerable to suck down on a run. But if you are on a bike, or if you are in a boat, or if you are a rower, so any other endurance sport, like there's many other options as far as fueling goes. Some people do like to chew or eat real foods, and you can do all of those things. But some other things I remember during marathon time was just like I definitely had more carb-based dinners, whereas when I wasn't marathon training, like I could have that balanced plate of like equal proportions of carb, protein, color, maybe rice and steak and side salad. But when I was marathon training, it was like, no, I just need a huge plate of pasta with ground beef and a side salad. But like the carbs were definitely the majority of the meal. And then another shift that I had during marathon training was my snacks needed to be just bigger, frankly. When I was, sedentary 9 to 5, even though I was training, very often my snacks could be like an apple and peanut butter or trail mix, almonds and dried fruit or string cheese or a protein shake, like kind of like snacks being like that singular item or one or two things, and including freshness, maybe carrots and hummus. Like these are all great snacks. But when I was marathon training, that wasn't enough. I needed more calories and specifically more carbohydrates. So when I was marathon training, a snack was a PB&J sandwich, like good thick bread, like 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and jelly, like a good PB&J sandwich with a glass of milk. That was a snack. I remember doing baked sweet potatoes with like chopped up apple, granola, and almond butter as a snack. During marathon training, bagels. I had bagels as a snack very often. So bagel with cream cheese and maybe some berries on top. maybe along with a drink, a smoothie or a juice or something like that. But I definitely just needed those are obviously bigger than just an apple and peanut butter, right? It was okay, the bagel with the peanut butter with the apple was more suitable during marathon training. And another time in my life when this was true was during pregnancy. So in the last few years, I've been pregnant twice, and I actually saw a lot of parallels with my pregnancy nutrition to my marathoning nutrition. Even though I was exercising way less during pregnancy, I was still able to be active, and I was happy to do that. But this is just hard. Pregnancy is just hard on your body. First trimester, I was so sick. Second trimester, I had energy, but then you're growing this baby, and it's just a lot on your body. And third trimester, the baby's really growing and heavy, and you're just tired at that point. So I was able to exercise, but it was challenging during both pregnancies. But the increased demand of food, calories, and carbohydrate, I felt that very similar to marathon training, where it was I needed more carbs on my plate than my husband had. I needed that bigger snack. And I remember doing sandwiches a lot more often during pregnancy than I might have if I weren't pregnant, just because I really needed those carbohydrates to really, really fill me up. Now, if you are interested in some interesting, more in-depth stories about this time in my life, if you go to episode number 33, that is where I actually share the news about my very first pregnancy with my son, Gabriel. And what's really interesting is that was actually, I had, prior to getting pregnant, I had COVID. And during my first and second trimester, I had some long-lasting COVID symptoms of altered taste and smell. And that really challenged me. So if you're struggling with eating during pregnancy or potentially still struggling with altered taste and smell from COVID, I hope people still aren't struggling with that. But if so, you can listen more in depth about that in episode number 33. And then during my second pregnancy with my son, Levi, I actually had terrible heartburn. It was very bad. I had it during both pregnancies, but during the second one, it was really bad. So if you resonate with having heartburn or GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, which during pregnancy, because of the baby growing and organ shifting and the terrible heartburn, it also led to bronchitis and a very extreme cough. So I was really struggling with my health and with nutrition and with eating. And you can listen to that episode. It's number 132, if that sounds interesting to you. So, and the reason I'm sharing this too is I just want to share throughout life, all these different nutrition tactics, right? You might be a female athlete, but maybe really struggling with heartburn. Go listen to that episode and pick up some tips and tricks, because you might need to adjust your nutrition during this time. Maybe you're a female athlete, but you're pregnant right now. Listen to these episodes to pick up some tips and tricks, because it might be different than your female athlete, non-pregnant friend, or you're somebody else who could just chug orange juice before a run and have it not bother them. And you're oh my gosh, one sip of orange juice and have terrible heartburn, right? So nutrition is individualized for everybody. There's unique situations, time periods in your life. And, in one sense, during pregnancy, I felt like I needed to fuel just like I did for marathon training, in the sense of those increased snacks, those more carbohydrates. But I also had the nuances of during heartburn, I could not eat 3 hours before bed because I couldn't lay down at night. And that was really hard. That was really hard because I was hungry. And I wanted to eat. I was hungry. So I'd have a really good snack. I had to eat more often, smaller meals. I couldn't eat 3 hours before bed. It was really challenging to manage that. But I did. I got through it. And so there are times in your life when you might have to do different nutrition tactics to overcome something. As I speak about pregnancy nutrition, I think this is another piece of my story that I wanted to really focus on today, which is sort of my journey with birth control. So I mentioned in part 1 that I actually did have, when I was a teenager, an ovarian tumor, and I did have primary amenorrhea, though we didn't diagnose it as that at the time. We were just thinking I was a, quote, late bloomer, unquote. And then I did have a tumor, which is very rare, but still something. I believe that I had a certain degree of REDS, even though we were not using that term or diagnosing it as such, and nobody addressed it with me. Nobody ever addressed female athlete triad. this was not addressed with me at all. But knowing what I know now in hindsight, I do believe that was part of my story. And then basically after the whole tumor issue and the lack of period issue and all of that, I was just put on the pill, and I was on it for many years, just thinking it was the right choice for me. And I didn't have too many severe effects from the pill either. So I just went with it. But at some point in time, I did start to feel that my moods were very, very cyclical in a negative way. Like I knew, we kind of toss it up of like, oh, girls being emotional on their period, blah, blah, blah. But it was really negative emotions, and I really didn't like it. It felt like I was like split personality, and maybe that's being a little extreme, but it doesn't matter. It wasn't me, and I knew I wasn't being me. And so I tried something else. There are different options besides just the pill, and I think it's really important for female athletes to be aware of all of your options of birth control to not have babies. Like if sorry, I'm being like mother hen here, but like you don't have to be on birth control, right? There's lots of options to not have babies. Abstinence is one, condoms is another one. And then we've got, our hormonal control, like the pill or like an IUD, which actually can be hormonal or non-hormonal. The non-hormonal one uses copper. There's an implant in your arm. There's the Nuva ring. There may be a few other options. That's actually what I'm most educated on right now. I myself tried the implant for a little bit. It did help with my moods. However, it led me to be extremely fatigued because the implant was a higher progesterone than I was used to. I was extremely fatigued. My cycle, I was then bleeding. My cycles were still irregular, and I was actually bleeding all the time, and I actually became a little iron deficient, and I was just feeling not good on that either. And at the time I was married, and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm specializing in female athlete health and wellness and nutrition, and I don't think I need to be on this. So I got off of it, and getting off of it was, crazy, because I think when I was a teenager and like the few times I had my period, I certainly didn't sync up with my cycle or learn about it. I was scared of my cycle. I didn't want it. I didn't know about it. I wasn't educated on it. And then, there came a point in my life where I was just like, thought birth control was my only option to not get pregnant, right? But if you actually educate yourself on how your body works, you can do natural family planning or natural birth control by knowing your cycle. And when I finally got off of it, it gave me that opportunity to get in sync with my body. And I started using a variety of different apps to help me track my cycle and learn more about it. And then as I was guiding other female athletes in this too, kind of learning about, different performance metrics and nutrition things that might need to fluctuate throughout your cycle too. So yeah, the first time I got off of it, it was just so refreshing. That fatigue I was feeling from the implant just like went away. And I actually felt more energized. And then the times in my cycle where I didn't feel energized, where I was like, ugh, I'm exhausted today. Ugh, I'm a little moody. It just made sense to me because I was like, oh, I'm about to start my period in like 4 days. That's probably why I'm a little moody. Like this is what my hormones are doing. My estrogen is rising. My progesterone is rising. Or that fatigue is hitting me after this workout. You know what? I'm going to take my workouts easy for the next few days because I know that when my follicular phase comes around, I feel great and I feel so energized. So it gave me more understanding of my body. And I think that in the times when my body didn't feel good, I understood why. And so instead of being mad at myself or hating my body or fighting against it, I really feel that from a hormonal standpoint, this was the first time I could truly work with my body. And although women might say we have more of a challenge than men because our body's hormones fluctuate throughout the month, I mean, you can predict it. If you take care of your hormonal health and take care of your nutrition and train wisely, you can establish a regular cycle and you can work with your cycle. And it is so cool to do that and feel like, oh, I'm in my follicular phase. I'm feeling really good and energized. I can push hard at this workout. And other phases, maybe in your luteal phase, where you can talk to your coach or adjust your own training to say, you know what, I need to scale back because this is how I'm feeling, or I can't scale back. I have to push through, but you know what? I'm going into it with that mindset of knowing this is going to be harder. Maybe I need to increase my fluids. Maybe I need to increase my carbs. Maybe I need to increase my motivational mindset routine or do more during warm-ups to help me get through this, because you have more knowledge about how your body's operating and you can work with it better. So I thought that was great for me to go through that. And like I said, I did mess around with a few different apps. Fitter Woman, FITR Woman, Wild AI are two that have a sport focus, and I like that about them. However, in what I learned about my natural cycling and syncing it, it also helped me as I then decided that I wanted to become pregnant. Basically, when you know, I'm about to ovulate, and you can use luteinizing hormone test strips at basal body temperature to figure that out. So I was able to basically get pregnant because I understood how my body worked. And now I'm basically using that in reverse of, because I know my body and I know when I could get pregnant. Now I also know, okay, well, I'm trying not to get pregnant right now. So I'm using it, understanding my body as birth control. And so a little bit of a shameless plug here. Over the past year, I'm postpartum 11 months now from little baby Levi. Once I established a regular cycle postpartum, which can take time, I started using an app called Natural Cycles. And this app is just so cool because it is the first app that is FDA approved as a birth control method, as a non-hormonal birth control method. What you are doing is tracking your natural cycle, understanding when you are ovulating, when you are not. And when you are ovulating, it will tell you to abstain or use protection. And then when you are not fertile, it tells you, hey, you're not fertile. And so it's really helping people understand their body. And what I think is so cool is because here in the USA, birth control is free, that you pay for the app up front, but then you can submit to your insurance for reimbursement. They have more information about that on their website. You can double check it with your insurance. But I just think this is so empowering for women to know, like, you do not have to be on hormones if you don't want to have babies. There's other options. Learn about your body. Maybe check out Natural Cycles, which is the app that I'm currently using. Again, a little bit of a shameless plug because I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but there is a refer a friend link that I'm going to leave in the show notes where you would get 20% off. And it is a monthly subscription, or you can pay yearly. And again, check with your insurance. You can get reimbursed. But if you use my refer a friend link in the show notes, you'll get 20% off and you'll get the free basal body temperature thermometer. So, in a sense of if you're taking the pill, you might remember to take the pill every day. You do have to remember to take your body temperature every day, but it's not as critical. There are many days when I don't take the temperature. And as long as I get a majority of days, and especially the days around ovulation time, you're going to be okay. So I actually missed taking my temperature this morning, and that's okay because I took it the last 4 days in a row, and hopefully I'll take it again tomorrow. And it's okay. It all goes into their algorithm to understand your body and when you're fertile and when you're not. So there's my shameless plug for Natural Cycles, but I shout out to the other apps that helped me learn about working with my body. Now, there's a lot of talk about nutrition throughout your cycle as well. And I've talked of it too, but this is all really scenario based. For example, in your luteal phase, you might have higher progesterone, meaning you might have more muscle breakdown. Well, if you're not working out as hard because you don't feel as good during that time, then there's not much you need to adjust for. But if you are still working out hard, maybe because you're on a team sport and you have to show up and do the team workout that day, or you have a competition, you got to work out hard. Okay, maybe there's some more nutritional things you can do to help your muscles recover protein-wise. We also know the higher estrogen can kind of block your ability to access carbohydrates. And so during your performance, your competition, your game, your match, your race, if you're in your follicular phase, you might need more during performance fuel to have that readily accessible sugars in your bloodstream, since estrogen is kind of blocking your ability to get it, right? So there's nuanced things that it's scenario based. Some women throughout their cycles, we actually might have some GI issues, some more bloating, some more gas. Sometimes we have more loose stools or diarrhea. Sometimes we're more constipated. So it's like, oh, okay, well, based on your personal symptoms throughout your cycle, you might need more fiber, less fiber, more hydration, right? But it's so individualized. You have to understand your cycle. So there's not like a, hey, this is how you should eat for your menstrual cycle health, specific guidelines, but there are some tips and tricks as you understand your body. Okay, so I went through as a female athlete, not resonating with disordered eating at all, kind of that need for more carbs and dealing with pregnancy, understanding my hormones, working with my body, my nutrition and training with my body through using my natural cycle. And I think there's two more things that really explain my journey with nutrition over the past 7 or so years. And as I mentioned, I got pregnant, so I do have 2 little boys, and that's just like mom life, like nutrition during mom life, and some things that have changed. It is so important to do your best to try and heal your relationship with food before becoming a parent, specifically a mother that I can speak of, because of the unique and stressful demands on your body and mind as a mother to little ones. That's all I'll speak to right now. They'll age eventually, but right now they're little. First and foremost, the whole breastfeeding journey. I only got to breastfeed one of my children, and it was challenging to keep up with the supply, the hydration, the food, the fueling, the stress. I was only able to breastfeed for about 8 months, and then my supply went down and his interest declined, and we did switch to formula. I really wanted to make it further, but it is what it is. That's okay. But it got hard. Like around 6 months, I knew my supply was dropping, and it was like, stay hydrated, eat more snacks. Like, it's a job to produce milk in your body. And that was really demanding. Another thing with mom life is like, especially in the immediate postpartum, like the first 6 weeks, maybe up to 12 weeks, my husband did have paternity leave, and I was grateful for that, because as my body was physically recovering and I was adjusting to this new baby, I did not have time to go grocery shopping or to cook or prep food myself. So I did rely on my husband to cook, prep food for me, and I'm grateful that he did that. And if your partner's not great at that, hopefully you have friends or family around. But it was also honestly quite challenging. There were times when he would bring me a meal and I would kind of cringe, because I was like, this isn't how I wanted it, to be totally honest. And maybe because I was already sleep deprived and already stressed and already emotional, that really upset me. I really wanted the food my way, how I wanted it. Maybe he put mayo on it and I didn't want mayo. Maybe he didn't put mayo on it and I did want mayonnaise on it, right? There's who knows? The point is, sometimes I wanted control over my food, but the truth of the matter was I couldn't. I was up all night with the baby. I was adjusting to a lot. I was physically recovering and then eventually trying to get back into work again. What? I had to rely on other people. I had to rely on more quick food options. I had to accept that food wasn't going to be perfect, that it wasn't going to be exactly my way, that sometimes we were going to have to order takeout. And that's okay. But I don't want to lie and say that was super easy. It was still a challenge. I had to take a deep breath and be like, okay, husband made me a meal, just eat it. Your day will come that you can make your other perfect meal the way you envisioned it. But right now, this is food, this is fuel. You need it to sustain yourself. Just eat it and be grateful. That practice of gratitude for food and people bringing you food was really, really important. I went through that again with my second son, though a little bit different. When Levi was born, we were in the NICU for nearly 4 weeks. And so I was relying on hospital food and what friends brought me, because I wasn't really home to cook. I was going through a lot emotionally. I didn't quite have an appetite because I was so emotionally tormented, I suppose. And I relied on other people feeding me. I relied on hospital food. And was it great? I don't know. Honestly, don't remember too much. I remember a lot about that time, and yet I don't, because that mindset of this is fuel, just sustain yourself. I'll actually never forget, years ago, I went through a totally, totally different, challenging time in my life where I was really in an emotionally dark place. And I remember my sister came to visit me at that time and just reminded me, she said, all you have to do today is stay hydrated and eat some food. And when I'm going through really hard emotional times, I think back to those words, those very wise words of my older sister of keep drinking water, keep eating food, and like, you'll get through this. And that's what I did when my son was in the NICU. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, all of your past food rules, all of your past worries about, is it healthy? Is it too much fat? How many carbs is it? Like, does it have antioxidants? Like, screw it. Like, stay hydrated, eat food, sustain yourself so you can live and you can get through this moment and you can focus on the far more important things in life right now. And so, yeah, that's like the theme of mom life is there's more important things. Your children are more important than if this meal is 50 calories more or less than you thought it was. Or if this meal was made in butter or, low calorie cooking spray. Like, who the F cares? You have a child to take care of, to put it bluntly. And so I experienced that definitely in the postpartum period, and then ongoing, like, in all honesty, another reason why it's so important to heal your relationship with food. Not only are you going to exhibit that and show that in front of your children, but like, mom life is busy. It's just busy. So I currently have a 2-year-old, 2 and 5 months, not even tomorrow, 2 and 5 months, and an 11-month-old. And like, the 2-year-old doesn't nap, which is crazy. So like, we're go, go, go. We don't have downtime. We don't have rest time. And so finding time to stop and eat a meal, kids eat in like 35 seconds and then they're off playing again, right? So how does mom feed herself? There's a lot of on-the-go foods. As a mom, I'm like totally down. Just like I pack snacks for the kids every time we leave the house, I pack snacks for myself. So I'm back into, using some granola bars, fruit and nut bars, some protein bars, and grab and go protein shakes. I feel like this is what I did in college. And then I got away from that because I could like make more meals homemade. And then mom life again is like, no, I need these quick, convenient options once again. I buy the drinkable yogurts now because I'm like, sometimes I just need to grab something as I'm running out the door or as I'm, running up and down the street as Gabe rides his bike or something like that. So I need a lot more of those convenience packaged foods in my life once again, even though I live and work from home. It's just that craziness of on the go. I also probably went 10 years without touching fast food for a period of my life. And I'll tell you what, a McDonald's Happy Meal is a great option from time to time for the whole family to stop by McDonald's on our way home from the playground, knowing like, hey, timing wise, they're starving. They keep asking for snacks. Do I have time to actually make them lunch when we get home? You know what? I'm just going to do that. And guess what? I feed myself the McDonald's during that time period too. So really having that flexibility, having the freedom of having, something like fast food or packaged convenience foods and knowing it's okay. This can fit into your diet. So lots of freedom, lots of flexibility, lots of those foods that, some people might criticize a dietitian for eating, but I am the dietitian. And I'm going to tell you right now, the back end of that is in mom life that I've learned is I actually have a lot more meal planning than I ever did before. So when I was caring just for myself, I could just figure out lunch. I could just figure out dinner in that moment. It doesn't work like that anymore as I'm functioning as a family of 4 and I am the one who does the majority of the grocery shopping and food planning. I am meal planning dinners and lunches for the week. I'm sometimes meal prepping breakfast options on the weekends. Having that structure in place is so helpful because otherwise, if I didn't know, hey, this is what's for dinner, I don't know what we would make. We would just keep making boxes of pasta over and over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I know, what? I want to get some veggies in there. I want some lean protein in there. I want to mix it up. I know, not just pasta every time, right? So I do a lot more meal planning. And this is why I think in my life right now, I really have that amazing balance of structure, planning, discipline, and then also that flexibility and fun with food. So I'm going to tell you a little meal planning tip that really works for my family of 4, which includes 2 adults and 2 little ones, one of whom actually isn't eating yet. But that's another story that we're going to get to, so bear with me. But what I actually do is I actually plan 5 meals, dinners a week. One of those nights is always pizza. We always do a homemade pizza night. So I'm actually only planning 4 meals a week, plus the 5th is a pizza night. one night is a leftovers night. And then one night we either go out to eat, we order in, we make it up on the spot, or actually we've been really in this routine recently of going out to lunch on Saturdays, and then we're not like super hungry for dinner. So we just kind of like, we make it up on the spot, something a little bit lighter because we had a really big lunch as a family. So that's what I do for my 7 days of the week. I only plan 4 meals plus pizza night, plus a leftover night, plus one figure it out as we go night. And that just makes meal planning so easy. Lunches, I very often personally eat leftovers. However, I typically have one thing like additionally planned. So it might be that I made a huge, like the other week, I made a chicken Greek pasta salad that was to be eaten cold. Or maybe I'll plan, we're doing cold cut sandwiches this week. And I get like, all the stuff to make a sandwich meal, some chips, some fruit for the side, whatever. So I usually have like one, and then like I always have quick stuff for the toddler as well, like dino nuggets, of course, and mac and cheese, of course. And sometimes I eat what he eats. I'm not ashamed to say that. So those are just some like meal planning tips that are working in this mom life for me of like planning, but having that flexibility and freedom. And again, just really stressing the importance of healing your relationship with food so that when you're thrown into a crazy situation, like becoming a mom to little ones, you can handle that. The other thing with mom life, gosh, I don't even know where to begin with this, but it's just those body changes and being really patient with your body changes, going throughout pregnancy, seeing your body grow, and then kind of trying to figure out what is my new normal. It's not about your body going back to what it was before, but it's about you growing into your mom body, which can be whatever you want that to be, but it might be getting back into fitness. It might be just supporting your breastfeeding. You've got time. You've got time. There's so much pressure, but take you 9 months to make a baby. At a very minimum, very, very minimum, give yourself 9 months to just be patient with your body before having major expectations out of it after pregnancy. So to try and wrap up 7 or so years of my life in under an hour podcast episode, I'm going to finish this off with one other like big life change or like kind of what I'm dealing with now nutrition wise that I'm learning, which is that my second son, Levi, was born with a rare genetic disorder that affects his metabolism. It's a blessing and a curse that I'm a dietitian because I can help him. At the same time, I almost know too much, and that's been scary at times. But he will have a lifetime of severe dietary restrictions. And one of those dietary restrictions is that he cannot metabolize sugar of any kind except for pure 100% straight glucose. So he cannot have any lactose, fructose, galactose, maltose. So he'll, in his life, he should never eat a strawberry or an apple, definitely not a banana. He's even got to be careful with things like sweet potato that have more natural sugar in it. Definitely can't have beer, definitely can't have Halloween candy, definitely can't have ice cream, shouldn't have dairy. These are some pretty severe dietary restrictions. And if you are interested in learning more about this and just kind of what I'm going through, you can go to episode number 140, where I just kind of gave my first update that my son was born and what we were dealing with his diagnosis, as well as episode number 143, where I kind of shared more about the actual conditions called glycogen storage disease type 1A, and I kind of educated people on what that was. And then more recently in episode number 174, I talked to another fellow sports dietitian, Kelsey Pontius, specifically about blood sugar. And ultimately what my son has a huge issue is with his blood sugar. And he can't eat sugar. So it's really quite complicated. But what I want to share about this is I'm in this now another like kind of journey. My journey with nutrition is, as you've just heard throughout part 1 and part 2 of my story, is how deeply I believe in the importance of having freedom around food, having an all foods fit approach. It's so important. It's been so important in my journey and in so many of my clients. Have fun with food, enjoy your cake, hit up McDonald's if you need to, right? While also eat your salad, eat your chicken, but like have fun with food, have freedom, have flexibility. And yet, boom, I have a son with severe dietary restrictions that affect his health and his life. So I am now navigating this journey of how do I encourage a good relationship with food for him and the rest of my house while also maintaining a very medically necessary strict diet. And I've come across this with some clients in the past. I've had clients with celiac disease. I've had type 1 diabetes clients that we're figuring out for them. How do we say no to one thing while saying yes to all these other things, right? And that's the relationship with food that I want to try and foster with my own son. It's a journey. I don't have it all figured out yet, but I know, one thing I've been trying to do is we are trying to explore different food options in my family right now. So just because Levi will never have a piece of candy in his life does not mean that our entire household is going sugar-free. That's irresponsible, not wise. However, there are certain things like, hey, if we're going to cook eggs with cheese or we're going to make grilled cheese, why don't we use a plant-based vegan cheese that's non-dairy and all of us can eat that, including Levi, right? And those are some things that we're already doing. I did that this morning. I made eggs with plant-based vegan cheese, non-dairy, and my husband said they were the best eggs he ate in his life. So that's a win for the family, right? So I'm trying to explore this. I also want to make sure okay, even if we might have a somewhat lower sugar household, that it does not mean we're a low carb household. That's extremely important. So yeah, I'm still navigating this. And another part of my journey with Levi is he's a G-tube baby. He has a G-tube, so alternative ways of eating. He wasn't able to metabolize breast milk, so we've done formula all the way. And we are in feeding therapy. He has a lot of eating struggles. Oh, he had a lip tie and a tongue tie. And then because of his condition and his restrictions, it's just been really, really hard. So I just want to share that part of my journey. It's I'm a sports dietitian. I help female athletes overcome disordered eating. And yet I've gone through this of pregnancy, postpartum, birth control. I've gone through my son now having dietary restrictions, making household adjustments. There's a lot of layers of this, of my experiences with food and nutrition. And really that kind of, like I said, I don't know that I can explain my whole life in 2 episodes of approximately an hour each, but I really wanted to display kind of that whole journey. And again, going back to part 1, where it was so much of that was a struggle. I just think about all I've been through now. Would I have been able to handle pregnancy and postpartum and mom life and now a child with dietary restrictions had I not overcame my past struggles? I can so easily see, just to be blunt about this, I can so easily see somebody who is not in a good mindset about food, who has disordered eating, give birth to a son like Levi, a child like Levi with this dietary restriction, and have somebody turn that upon themselves. And I'm telling you this because in all honesty, full transparency, I almost did. And I'm in a good place. I'm a dietitian in a good place with fueling. And at one point in time, I was like, oh my God, get all the sugar out of the house. We're going to be a sugar-free family. I thought that at one point in time because that's how life-threatening it is for my son and how important it is for him. And then I was able to snap myself out of that and say, that's unrealistic. That's not necessary. There's a better way to do this, right? But just imagine if I hadn't healed my relationship with food. Just imagine if I was still engaging in disordered eating. I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't be able to keep up with my training because I would be so underfueled and undernourished because mom life is crazy. I'd be so self-obsessed with my own body, my own weight on the scale that I wouldn't be showing up as a mother or as a wife or as a caretaker. And then I'd be so stressed about my son that I'd be putting that stress on other people and I'd be creating more disordered eating for the entire family. So this is why it's important to heal your relationship with food, to take care of yourself. And again, I'm going to go back to those fundamentals of stop caring about your weight, listen to your body, not to a specific diet, not to numbers, have fun, find the balance between fun and flexibility, as well as discipline and planning. Some other kind of takeaways or just things that I really apply to my life right now is I will always say no food rules. There's no food rules. There's no rule no eating after 8 p.m. or can't eat bread twice in a day. Those are ridiculous, disordered rules. I don't have food rules. And then I have a little asterisk in my head to be like, except for the ones that help me. The rules that help me are I always eat before workout and I always eat after workout. And another little subset of that rule is that both of those cannot be a traditional meal. Like I don't have breakfast pre-workout and lunch post-workout. No. I might have breakfast pre-workout, but then I have a recovery smoothie post-workout and then lunch. Or maybe I have breakfast and then I have an extra pre-workout snack and then I have my workout and then maybe I have lunch and that's post-workout. Or I double up. I do breakfast, pre-workout snack, post-workout snack, and lunch. But for sure, not both of them. I always eat before and after, and you can't let both of them be a traditional meal. Like one of them has to be extra. Remember that people who don't train should be eating breakfast, lunch, dinner, or at least 3 meals a day. So, and a couple snacks, like that's a very normal way of eating for an average healthy person. So if you're an athlete, you need more on top of that. So that's one of my rules. I don't have food rules, but that is a rule. That is something that helps me. I think another, like, this isn't really a rule, but it's kind of what I was getting at earlier of like, I do plan and prepare and meal prep a little bit. However, I plan to have flexibility. I might put in there, hey, Thursday or Friday, one of those nights we're going to go out to eat, or we're going to just, we're going to figure it out on the spot. Like I plan to have flexibility. I work that in. So I do plan, but I intentionally do not plan every meal every day. I work in the flexibility. Breakfast is another one that for me personally is always going to be a flexible one. Wake up and figure out like, what do I feel like having? I sometimes meal prep a little bit. Like I might meal prep some egg cups or a quiche or some overnight oats, but I don't meal prep too much for breakfast. That's always kind of an intuitive meal for me. But I do kind of a rule that I have is to prepare for flexibility. So those are some of my no rules, yet these are the rules that help me in my life. Oh, and staying hydrated. That's another little rule I have. Oh my gosh. I have to fill up my water bottle first thing in the morning. I fill up a 32-ounce water bottle. I need way more water than that in a day, but that just like starts my day. So that's another little rule I have. I wake up, I grab coffee. Don't you get me wrong. I absolutely drink coffee, but I wake up, grab my coffee, and I fill up that 32-ounce water bottle. That is a rule that I have so that I at least have the water bottle prepared. And now it's up to me to follow through with actually drinking it. But that's a little rule I have just to start my day off on the right foot. So you are allowed to have rules that support you. You also are allowed to make sure that those rules change over time as needed in different situations in your life. Well, fans, thank you so much for listening. I hope learning a little bit more about me and my journey, my experiences as a female athlete, as a dietitian, as a runner, I hope that helped you connect with this podcast more and maybe understand why I started this podcast, why I started my business, why I have the guests that I have on, kind of why I choose them, the things that I talk about. Like, again, I started this podcast back in 2020 and I had an episode there about my journey, but my journey has changed. It's continued, right? There's more to share. And I wanted any new listeners that we had to feel more connected, understand who I am, where I'm coming from, and my journey with food and athletics. Oh my gosh, I just realized in this whole part 2, I didn't share too much about athletics, but that's kind of because as I mentioned, that was like, it was the pandemic time and then 2 back-to-back pregnancies and then postpartum. But so in this more recent, like last 4 years, I have not been competitive, but I still do train. And that's been part of my journey too. I guess I'm going to save that for another time because this is already a long episode. But that's why I didn't focus on it too much because it's not competitive. It is mostly just recreational for health. And actually, I'm going to say for the past year with what's been going on with my son, exercise has been hugely important for my mental health to help me cope and process and relieve some stress. So training has absolutely been there, but not necessarily at the same competitive intensity as it was in the past. But I know that it can be there again in the future when I'm ready for it, because that is the power of female athletes. I'm actually more empowered in my body after having children because of seeing all that it is capable of and the strength that is within it. So I know that if I want to be competitive again, I will be, and I know you can too. So please stay tuned for more educational and inspiring episodes of the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast. I'm so honored to be your host. And please go check out the new website, femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com and get in touch with me. Leave a review on, Apple Podcasts, or send us an email just so I can hear, are you liking the show? What do you want to hear more of, less of? I would love to hear from our listeners and make sure that this is a podcast that is truly helping female athletes fuel better to become fierce in their mindset, fit in their body, and fueled athletically. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, if you are a true fan of female athlete nutrition, then I would love if you could support our podcast by spreading the word. Share a review on your listening channel, give us 5 stars. It really helps get the word out and get the show more views to positively impact others. Also, you can support the podcast by joining our Patreon. Head to patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition to consider a donation, or even better, join our membership where you get extra monthly content and perks. We don't want you to simply listen alone. We want you to be a part of a community and a movement of fierce, fit, and fueled female athletes. So patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition is where you can do exactly that, learn more, and join. A huge thanks to our affiliates and partners as well. Once again, Prevenix, Inside Tracker, Orgain, Practice Better, Jen and Carrie. Please go check them out, and their links in the show notes where you can get deals and discounts. Last, be sure that you do more than just listen. If you need help with fueling, it's time to take action. Head to my website to learn more. You can either book a free call with me to learn more about our coaching programs and how we can work directly with you, whether it's the fast track or otherwise. Or you can take our online self-study course, Female Athlete Nutrition. You can literally sign up and gain access right now. You can explore our downloadable products, including the Red S Recovery Guide, High Iron Fueling Guide. Or if you are a coach of a team, check out our brand new Coaches Toolkit for teams. You can also just learn more. We have a blog, a Red S quiz to see if Red S is affecting you. If you need help, I want you to get help fast. Too many girls and athletes struggle with nutrition, but you don't have to any longer. You can rise up with the power of nutrition, take action today in any of these avenues, and become fierce, fit, and fueled. Links in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.